session has begun.
Excellencies, Model UN organizers, students, youth, UN enthusiasts, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of this event's steering committee, I take great pleasure in welcoming you to this panel discussion. We are here at an inflection point in our history. We are fighting a pandemic and its devastating effects, combating climate change, which poses many existential threats, shielding multilateralism as a viable means of international cooperation, and defending international law for a safer and more peaceful world. Further exacerbating matters is the fact that the global community, according to the Secretary General, is tremendously off track in meeting the Sustainable Development Goals by the 2030 target date. That does not bode well for the prosperity we hope to achieve. But as I see you all here, I am reminded that not all hope is lost. In the Secretary General's Our Common Agenda report, an entire segment is dedicated to succeeding generations, a phrase borrowed from the 1945 UN Charter, and the centrality of young people in creating the future we need. In doing so, the Secretary General also highlighted the significance of keeping youth abreast of practices, procedures, and norms of the UN, thereby incubating civic-minded global citizens and promoting adherence to UN values and principles. It is my hope that you will all take the challenge of applying what you learned today in your homes, communities, and countries, as SDG realization tomorrow depends on all and especially your actions today. I now declare the event open and hand over to Nahjae Nunes, our advisor here at the Jamaican Mission, who will be moderating this session. Good luck. Godspeed.
Many thanks, Your Excellency, for your heartening words and for officially opening our side event today. Welcome one and all to a panel discussion on Model UN contributions to building a more sustainable future here at the 2022 ECOSOC Youth Forum. My name is Nahjae Nunes, and as you just heard, I am the advisor here at the Permanent Mission of Jamaica to the UN, and I am so thrilled to be the moderator of this scintillating discussion co-organized by the mission and a coalition of Model UN organizations from around the world. Are you excited? Because I know I am. The utility of Model UN cannot be overstated. From youth empowerment and mobilization to sustainable development and growth, MUN stand as a force that continue to contribute to the creation of positive transformations all around the globe. But what role can this entity play in the construction of a more sustainable future? Today's international renowned, award-winning and motivation-eliciting panel aims to answer this very question through a meticulous examination of the four key segments of our discussion. 1, Model UN's role in raising awareness of the SDGs. 2, Model UN and the SDG 17. 3, Model UN and youth action for the SDGs. And 4, how to get involved in Model UN. Subsequently, we will have an extensive question and answer segment, thanks to the action-oriented nature of Model UN, because we want to ensure that whatever information you consume here today can be effortlessly translated into action, no matter your location on here on beautiful Mother Earth. And so, without further ado, we begin today with our foremost segment on MUN's role in raising awareness of the SDGs. Here, I will be joined by Leah Schmidt, the Deputy Secretary General of the 2022 National Model UN. I'll also be joined by Eric Adler, Co-Chair of THIMUN Foundation Board of Directors. Also Shuye, the President and CEO of WELAND. I'll also be joined by Sharon Mwitari. She is the Kenyan Delegate to the International Global Network and National Model UN Africa. And finally, my friend since yesterday, Philippe, founder and director of World Model UN Day and a representative of MUNers across borders. Leah, the floor is yours.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Just to confirm, can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
Lovely. Fantastic. Well, I just want to emphasize how excited I am to be here today. I am a huge proponent of ModUN being an unparalleled experiential learning tool, and I think it's a very important starting point for discussion on the role of youth in diplomacy. We actually just finished our 2022 conference in Manhattan on Friday, which was our first in person conference since before COVID. And we had representation from 126 member states present. I'm still riding that high of reuniting with all of our incredible volunteer staff and seeing the in person excitement of the delegates once again. And I'm also still trying to catch up on sleep. It was a conference that was really truly worth the wait. It's also why my voice is a little rough. I apologize for that. One of our accidental traditions is passing around what we call the NMUN plague because we truly share everything. Not COVID, luckily, but I am trying to recover. So apologies for the voice. Next slide, please. So during my speech as the Deputy Secretary General, the conference's substantive lead at the closing ceremonies, I spoke about how it was Model UN that first introduced me to the concepts of international policy and diplomacy as a whole. I currently work in international affairs for the Canadian government, and I would not have pursued this path were it not for Model UN. The substantive knowledge I gained through those pre conference research sessions, the enthusiasm of my peers, and the experience of fully immersing myself in the process of diplomacy and negotiations made me care very deeply about diplomacy as a whole. And this is a photo of us presenting our delegate rules briefing at the start of conference. Next slide, please. To me, the model part of Model UN is the least important component of these conferences because when you gather a group of motivated people in a room to discuss pressing global topics, the human dynamics are the same regardless of whether it's a room full of first time undergraduate delegates or career diplomats at their 30th summit. When I started in my Canadian Foreign Service role, I couldn't believe that the exact same interpersonal pressures, those same arguments over clause language, the same rush of achievement when consensus was reached, were all exactly the same as to what I experienced in Model UN. To me, there is no more accurate or immersive educational simulation available, and I'm happy to do what I can to introduce new students to the opportunity to participate, regardless of their experience level, in the hope that they too will discover a love of multilateralism, as I have. Next slide. This is us taking one of our first votes in session, always a very exciting moment. The mission of achieving quality educational experiences and fostering civic engagement is one of the ways in which NMUN and other leading Model UN conferences work to support the Sustainable Development Goals both in theory and in practice. While our staff team worked all week and actually all year to ensure that we offered a quality educational experience in alignment with SDG 4, our delegates discussed a wide range of topics across all SDGs and across 21 committees, including incredible resolutions passed by acclamation, always a victory, in both Commission on the Status of Women and UN Women in alignment with SDG 5, discussed life on land and below water in alignment with SDGs 14 and 15 in the United Nations Environment Assembly and the United Nations Development Program, and had an intense real-time crisis in Sheikh Jarrah in the Security Council, which was well handled. Next slide, please. This is a photo of our wonderful volunteer staff team who spent 11 and a half months preparing for the conference this year. So they're very invested in making sure that the delegates have a really good time and come away with a positive educational experience. We also learned a number of lessons this week. All of us are reintegrating back into socialization and the world of in person negotiations, much like real diplomats. So there were some learnings about how to work with each other again in a non virtual space. The ongoing invasion of Ukraine by Russia presented challenges as well, with delegates struggling to find a balance between accurately representing their country's foreign policy and also maintaining diplomatic decorum. In many committees, delegates had to work to create realistic and concrete proposals from their own theoretical university learnings. Some of the questions that popped up were, how does one decolonize a UN resolution? How can we make a resolution that encapsulates the lived experiences of gender discrimination while also being effective policy? What are the red lines or flexible areas of each member state's foreign policy? Despite the intense discussions that always occur between delegates over the course of the week on these important issues, at the end of the day, no draft resolutions failed in either committee voting blocks or plenary sessions, testament to the delegates' negotiation skills. Next slide, please. This is our fantastic Security Council who handled us, throwing them various crisis updates with great grace. At the end of the conference's closing ceremonies, the staff team and I had many delegates come up to us to express their thanks for the event. While the particulars varied, the theme was the same. This was my first conference, and I cannot wait for the next one. I wasn't expecting to have so much fun. One day I would like to apply to staff too, and I finally understand how and why the SDGs are relevant to my own work. This is one of the most rewarding pieces of the conference, that no matter how many model resolutions passed, the friendships created there between delegates from all over the world are mighty enough to give me optimism about the future of diplomacy. And that's the power of Model UN, shaping the future generation to care deeply about their world and giving them the tools and empowerment to then go out and make those changes. Final slide, please. Thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions as they pop up, and please feel free to reach out to me on socials as well. I love talking about the power of Model UN, the progress we made on teaching delegates about the SDGs, and the conference experience as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leo. We seem to be having some technical
There we are.
difficulties.
We are here.
Oh, wonderful. So now we'll be hearing from Mr. Eric Adler, who will be coming to us, co-chair of the THIMUN Foundation Board of Directors. Eric?
Thank you very much, Nahjae. Good morning, everyone, from the Netherlands. So I'm over in Europe. My name is Eric Adler, and I'm the co-chair of the THIMUN Foundation. I will be presenting two main topics today. One is introduction to THIMUN, so the Hague International Model of the United Nations, and giving you two examples from approved resolutions which address the SDGs. And the topic is how THIMUN enables youth to engage in sustainable development. Next, please. So just a quick history. The mission of THIMUN is to promote the foster collaborative solution-oriented discussions of global issues among youth so that they take on a passionate and engaging role in the future and become more responsible global citizens. I don't think this is unique to THIMUN. This is also, I'm sure from Leah's perspective that you've just heard, it would probably be about the same. What we're saying here is that we believe in dialogue, and that dialogue is very important. And that we see ourselves, THIMUN, as an enabler, or to give the framework to enable young people to be open, to lead, and find common ground, and thereby solutions. THIMUN is basically, we run a number of conferences. We have Singapore, we have Qatar, we have THIMUN The Hague, and then we have approximately 50 international affiliate conferences, all working together with us to enable students at high school levels to debate, discuss, and find solutions. It's basically a 5-day simulation of the United Nations General Assembly, and the committees here are led by students, by student officers for student delegates. So again, what we do is just we set the framework, but the whole conference for 5 days is basically run by students for students. The delegates develop position papers on issues. The issues are defined by us throughout the year. And then based on lobbying, debating, they then conclude with passed resolutions. In 2022, unfortunately, we've had to have the Hague THIMUN online, where we had 1,500 participants passing 88 resolutions. We hope next year to be physical again, and I'm happy that Leah was able to do that. We haven't quite gotten to that point in Europe yet. And there we normally have about 3,000 students joining us. So what's the result? What comes out of these conferences that we have? And I just want to give you two quick examples of what comes out. Next, please. So one of them, again, you know probably how resolutions are built up. It's just as in the United Nations. And as I said, there's a lot of debate. There's a lot of lobbying going on to get a final agreement, which is then passed. One I took as an example from the SDG 5, the Human Rights Council, where we have methods to ensure equality between men and women. And their declaration is to resolving the problems that hinder women's education. And then the outcome of that is a number of points. There are more than these. These are just some that I've pulled out. So they encouraged the initiation of gender equality in educational campaign, and basically convincing families that do not send their girls to school to do so. They have some suggestions to actively encourage women to seek out education or training, and asking for member states to make it safe and non-hostile environments for women, and doing so by educating corporate employees, managers, school children, and staff to minimize possible sexism. Also teaching families and children, especially in the lower education areas, the importance of women seeking education, and basically to reduce the stigma of women seeking education, training, and employment. It's also an idea is to create a monetary fund called United for Gender Equality in Educations, in short UGE, and it's in order to facilitate the implementation of the clauses of the resolution for all member states. And as I said, there are a number of other clauses. These are more examples to see what comes out after 5 days of hard work, 5 full days of hard work by the delegates. Next, please. Here's another example from SDG 14, coming out of the Environmental Committee, methods to protect oceans from overexploitation. And again, they notice that the overexploitation is, of course, overfishing, oil and gas extraction, and this has resulted in pollution and exploitation of targeted and non-targeted species. It strongly urges to bring environmental impact assessments on regulations and programs, marine biodiversity, overfishing, so that we can get a picture of what's going on, also fishing gear, about fisheries and overfishing, stock assessments, and the status of the ecosystem and species within them. So set the basis for then getting some actions, such as to support local population by giving them access to a wide range of occupations through providing occupational ventures for individuals, rely on the fishing industry through the creation of alternate jobs that are funded by organizations such as Greenpeace, Oceania, and UNEP. And then giving locals and people living in poverty or rural areas access to education facilities, maybe by creating a fund that goes towards a specific problem from organizations such as UNESCO. So the outcome of the 5 days and of the delegates working is basically agreeing that this is the problem and what kind of solutions do we have that we can present, that we can work with, and that we can find as a common ground. Again, the delegates are actually representing different countries, so it forces them during their discussions, debates, to try and understand from the different perspectives. And this helps young people to open up to thinking and understanding from different points of view, which is the way of, if you're going to find solutions for the future, and come to some common agreement, you have to be able to understand, let's say, the opposite or the views from an opposite point of view from people. This is basically what I wanted to say, and Again, also, if you have any questions afterwards about either THIMUN or how we work or what we can do, or you have good ideas on how we can move forward in the future, please feel free to ask when we get to the question and answer session. Thank you.
Shuye, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Dear friends and MUNers, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hello from Beijing, China. My name is Shuye, the President and the CEO of WELAND International, as well as the Vice President of Youth Bridge Foundation. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Ambassador Wallace and the Permanent Mission of Jamaica to host this event. Thanks to Bill and Philippe to organize our MUN organizations from all over the world to talk about MUN contributions to building a more sustainable future with young generation. This is my second time to attend the ECOSOC Youth Forum. 2 years ago, in 2016, I attended the ECOSOC Youth Forum as youth representative from China. Well, at this time, I'm honored to be the speaker of this event. Next, please let me give you a brief introduction of WELAND International. WELAND was established by a group of Peking University graduates in 2005. We organized the different levels of MUN conferences in China, such as Women Expo, a creative MUN conference combined different rules, procedure, and philosophy MUN conferences in the world. We help Chinese middle and high schools build up MUN clubs and teach MUN and SDGs courses. We also provide some volunteering program, study tours, and camps for youth from all over the world. Under the subtopic MUN's role in raising awareness of the SDGs, I would like to share action of WELAND and Chinese students related to MUN activities with you in past 2 years. Next slide, please. During the COVID-19, we hosted, organized, and attended several MUN conferences. We hosted 3 in-person MUN conferences in the city of Beijing and Shanghai. Over 1,000 participants attended in total, within more than 30 topics discussed, and over 60% topics related to Goal 4, 5, and 15 of SDGs, such as biodiversity loss and agriculture in FAO, educational inequality in UNESCO, environmental and climate preservation for future generations. We hosted and organized 9 online MUN conferences, and over 2,000 students attended in total, including MUN Refugee Challenge with UNHCR. We got the Special Mentions Award under the topic of rights of refugee women, which is related to Goal 4 and 5 of SDGs in 2021 MUN Refugee Challenge. We also cooperate with WFUNA to organize the WIMON Asia in 2021, including the topic of social protection systems and access to public services for gender equality, and the empowerment of women and girls, which is also related to Goal 4 and 5. Additionally, we organized more than 500 Chinese students to attend international MUN online conferences hosted by WFUNA, THIMUN Foundation, Oxford Global MUN, and other universities' international relations councils, such as Yale University, University of Chicago, Cornell University, and the University of Pennsylvania. Not only WELAND, but more and more MUN organizations discuss topics related to SDGs in China now. Hundreds of MUN conferences could have tens of thousands of students in only one summer. Compared with years ago, more students focused on the issues of military, technology, or international trade. After COVID-19 pandemic, we could see more and more youth care about the issues related to public health, good education, refugee, and gender equality. Beyond MUN conferences and training sessions, WELAND promotes new and creative initiatives to public, private, international, middle, and high schools in China. Cooperates with China-Africa Business Council and the United Nations Population Fund China, we undertake the Public Benefit International Challenge for Youth in China. It's named PBIC. With strong guidance from the Organization of African First Ladies for Development, PBIC is an innovation competition to encourage the youth to be creative in purposing and designing implement solutions to address issues in education, medical care, public health, among others in Africa, to contribute to the well-being of the African people, especially women and children. In 2020 and 2021, we organized more than 600 students from all over 100 middle and high schools in China to attend the PBIC, and most of them are MUNers. The next program, we selected the youth volunteers interested in topics of quality education and gender equality after MUN conferences, and organized and trained them to be volunteer teachers. We lead them to countryside to teach boys and girls in Western China. On the other hand, we contacted with people in Laos and Cambodia who need to learn Chinese and hosted volunteers for teaching Chinese online. From our perspective, both PBIC and volunteering teaching related to Goal 4 and 5 and other goals are a kind of practice for MUN students. ModulUN is a way to learn global issues, to bring an international perspective for youth, to enhance public speaking and writing skills, to develop leadership, and to make friends. ModulUN is a baptism for us, for young students. However, ModulUN is always in the conference rooms, and SDGs could help us teach students from the imagination to the real world, from the numbers in draft resolution to the reality. WELAND wishes to set up a bridge for young people across the world to participate in doing good deeds, provide professional competence, and realize the creativity and the passion of youth. We will keep working together with other MUN organizations, UN bodies, and NGOs to establish a global network for MUNers and let MUNers practice in reality. With our joint efforts, we would like to contribute to the realization of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. That's all for my speech. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Shuye. We will now have our next participant coming to us. Sharon, are you here with us? Sharon?
Hi.
Okay, wonderful. I'm hearing you. Okay, I'm seeing you now. Wonderful. Hello.
Great. Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon Mwitari, and I am an MUN enthusiast from Kenya. And it's really such a thrill to be part of this conversation today. And the focus of my presentation will be on the contribution of MUNs in Africa to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide, please. And I'll start off by debunking a very popular myth about Africa. You know, truth be told, when people think about Africa, some have this perception of a backward and uncivilized continent. And, you know, that's pretty unfortunate because it couldn't be more different, especially in terms of MUNs. You know, I can personally testify that MUNs here are pretty much at the same level with MUNs from other continents, especially in terms of the quality of debate and the quality of resolutions. You know, perhaps the only difference would lie in the rules of procedure, but that's normal, you know, because there are different MUN styles. And with that preamble, allow me to now talk about how African MUNs have walked the talk in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'll start with SDG 4 on quality education, and I will cover this in twofold. The very first aspect is in terms of MUN as a platform for learning and development of so many people. You know, I remember at a conference, a delegate once told me that the committee sessions are like super cool classrooms, which is true, you know, because participants come together to discuss and come up with solutions for global issues. And through that process, they're able to research and learn from each other about what's happening in the world, what they can do about it, as well as cultivating different skills. You know, and I was talking to a friend about this, and he confessed that the first time he learned about the Sustainable Development Goals was through an MUN conference, because these things weren't taught in university when he was there. So yeah, it's a really, MUN is really a good learning tool. And of course, we can't forget to mention the MUN Refugee Challenge that has really exposed thousands of people to learn about the plight of refugees. Secondly, still on this SDG, I'd like to highlight the contribution of BMUN. BMUN is an MUN based in Nigeria, and in 2018, they conducted an essay competition in the Plateau State of Nigeria. And in this plateau state in Nigeria, a lot of children were dropping out of school for various reasons. So BMUN was able to partner up with the European Union, and they organized this essay competition where they would give full scholarships to the top 3 winners of the competition. And 23 high schools were able to participate in the competition. Winners were sponsored to high school for the 4 years. And they were able to also use this as an opportunity to converse on ways to boost school attendance of the kids around the state. So that was pretty great by BMUN. On the second SDG, that is SDG 5 on gender equality, members of the same BMUN, right, Nigeria, they participated in the 16 Days of Activism campaign last year, which was themed Orange the World campaign. Perhaps some of you remember that campaign. And members of BMUN were able to hold peaceful demonstrations in Nigeria to advocate against gender-based violence. And they lit up, not fire, but just lights. They lit up prominent buildings in Lagos and Abuja, and they highlighted the words "end violence against women." And a lot of people, it attracted the attention of a lot of people. And the impact of this is that it was able to spark conversation, passion, and also action on ending violence against women. The very next SDG I'd like to talk about is SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation. And on this SDG, I'll be talking about Kenya Model United Nations based in Kenya. Last year, 2021, they were able to partner up with a local NGO as well as numerous sponsors. And they organized the menstrual hygiene campaign. And in this campaign, they were able to distribute thousands of sanitary pads to around 5 different high schools based in Nairobi, Kenya, as well as conducting talks in those schools on menstrual hygiene, myths, sanitation, all that. So that was pretty great. And the next SDG, next slide, please. The next SDG I'll cover is SDG 13 on climate action. And in this specific SDG, I'll be talking about THIMUN. THIMUN is Sub-Saharan International MUN, which primarily operates in Southern and East Africa. And in 2019, they were able to host a tree planting event in partnership with Co-Green Africa and Kenya Forestry Service. And the members were able to plant over 1,000 trees in one day, which is a pretty solid step towards the global forest cover target of 10% and also achievement of this SDG, I believe. The very next SDG I'd talk about is SDG 17 on partnerships for the goals. And, this has been pretty evident so far because the projects that I have mentioned were implemented with other stakeholders. We saw MUN partnering up with the European Union. We saw THIMUN partnering up with Co-Green Africa. So it's really commendable and great to see these MUNs going out of their ways to partner up with different organizations, different stakeholders in order to maximize the impact and reach that they have in their communities. Although I would like to see perhaps ways in which these MUNs are partnering up with the government because there's some discrepancy there. And the final SDG I would like to cover is on good health and well-being. And under this SDG, I'll talk about a network that was formed last year. It's called United African Network. And what's pretty interesting about this network is it's a network that was formed by African MUNers for Africans, right? So a couple of MUNers met at an MUN and they decided to, found this network. And as of today, it has over 160 people. And this network was able to conduct a campaign on breast cancer awareness last year, which lasted for around 2 weeks. And they distributed posters and informational material on breast cancer on social media as well as in their local communities. And at the end of the campaign, after 2 weeks, they also hosted a webinar on breast cancer where around 100 people joined the webinar and they were able to talk about the early symptoms of breast cancer, how to detect it, the risks that come with it. And they also were able to support a lot of women to go get screened. So that was pretty great in line with this SDG. And additionally, MUN, once again, in 2017, if I'm not wrong, they conducted a medical outreach program in partnership with Babcock University Medical Teaching, the medical department, where they conducted free medical checkups for people around their community, eye tests, they distributed drugs, they distributed eye drops, they distributed spectacles and over 200 mosquito nets to the local community. So, that was also pretty great and in line with this SDG 3. And, obviously what I have been talking about is just a brief snapshot of what has been done by MUNs in Africa towards the achievement of SDGs. There's a lot more that I have left out and that I'm also unaware of, but I hope that I have been able to do some justice to what MUNs in Africa have been doing in terms of the SDGs. And I also hope that the few examples I have given have inspired some ideas and actions that other people can take through MUNs or outside MUNs. And with all that said, I have come to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Sharon Mwitari, Kenyan delegate to the International Global Network and National Model UN Africa. And finally, for this segment, we're now going to hear from my friend since yesterday, Philippe, who is the founder and director of World Model UN Day and representative of MUNers across borders.
Thank you very much. Although we met yesterday, I'm sure we are the fiercest of friends already. And thank you very much for your kind introduction. So I'll be here talking today about MUNers across borders and World Model UN Day. We're a very new organization, only started back in 2021. And we're really happy to essentially be taking almost a step back to what MUN does and trying to connect MUN across the world to be able to bring together communities and really both share lessons learned in MUN as well as promoting, the common values of MUN and its celebrations. So with this, I'm extremely happy to welcome most of the partners here to some of the events that we've ran. And what we're trying to do as well is, be one of the first stop shops that anyone interested in MUN really sees when they try and join. As part of this, the most important project we do is World Model UN Day. Very new. We're looking to get this obviously more formally established and hopefully working with every single conference in the world. But I want to focus on how we contribute to a more sustainable future. And in my opinion, one of the things about MUN is that it is one of the oldest, actually the oldest almost sort of UN related activity you can do. 1943 was the first Model UN. Yes, before the UN itself, and big credit to William Yotive for teaching us about that. And so the activities that the MUN has done since then have been huge. Thousands of conferences, tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of delegates over the years. And what we want to try and do in our own small way is bring them all together, provide a platform, provide a foundation by which anyone interested in MUN can get to, and really make sure that we are all building up each other in this rather than, say, competing with each other. So the global conference is ideally going to be our major activity, once a year, every March, having a giant conference bringing every MUNer and those who are just vaguely interested in MUN to the UN or UN bodies or just, the international community. And through this, raising awareness of civic education, raising awareness of the SDGs. Sharon mentioned it fantastically. For many people, especially high school MUNers, the first time they learn about the UN or SDGs is through MUN. And we want to, be able to provide a platform to make it easier for conferences and people interested in the UN and MUN to create conferences, to meet other people, and just become more connected to the global citizenship that is those who've done MUN or interested in MUN. We also want to be more interactive with this. One of our flagships, for example, from the last World Model UN Day was the creation of an interactive resolution. We had hundreds of people just come along and write down what they are interested in MUN. We had people from Tanzania, from China, from Brazil, from Morocco, all over the world contribute to a resolution on how youth can be supported at the UN. And we want to continue that. And that really is, in my opinion, sort of learning by doing, which is very much a big part of SDG 4's learning capabilities. So we focus more on that aspect. And also, one thing that, I'm extremely happy for the Jamaican mission to be hosting us this is being able to promote and show the diversity of MUN, because we are too trapped in bubbles with MUN. You have an American circuit, a European circuit, an African circuit, etc., etc. And I want to burst those bubbles. And we at MUNers Across Borders want to do exactly that, promote MUNers across borders and highlight the diverse nature of MUN at all times. Just a small note, just on our celebrations already, we've only been active for the best part of sort of half a year, just over half a year. We've already had hundreds join our events. The Secretary General of the United Nations sent us a letter of support as well. And we've been working with some of the fantastic organizations at the bottom there. And we aim to work with every single MUN organization on the planet, every mission, everyone interested. It's a crazy dream, but you have to start somewhere. And I hope that we can also grow into promoting other SDGs far more in our work, SDG 17 being an obvious one. And hope to see all of you there and all of you engaged, and already very happy to see all the great people involved in today. So that's all from me, a short but sweet one. I'll now yield back to a wonderful moderator.
Thank you so much, Philippe. And it's a crazy dream, but it's an achievable dream. And it is our hope that today will help to spark those conversations that will help persons to recognize the utility of Model UN. And as you just said, in helping our young people to to precipitate those actions that will able to translate UN knowledge into those kinetic action on the ground that makes those differences. Thank you all so much for sharing such riveting information. And I'm sure the participants are just buzzing wherever they are. And I thank you all so much for the work that you have done as you promote and foster collaborative, solution-oriented discussions of global issues amongst young people so that they can take on a passionate and engaging role in the future and become more responsible global citizens. We are now going to move into the second segment of today's panel, focusing on Model UN and SDG 17, strengthening the means of implementation and revitalizing the global partnership for sustainable development. This goal is one that has 19 targets and indicators comprised of goals that are related to finance, technology, capacity building, trade, and systemic issues. And how is it possible that Model UN can help in this regard? To help us dissect this discussion, I'm now going to have Kevin Felix Chan, or I think he's better known by his initials because this is how I know him, KFC, co-founder and CEO of Best Delegate, to tell us how. Hi, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction and transition as well. Yes, I am Kevin Felix Chan, also known as KFC in the Model UN community, and I'm the co-founder of Best Delegate. And I want to speak specifically about SDG 17 in Model UN. A lot of times we talk about the other SDGs in Model UN and we forget we're actually doing SDG 17 very often. And I actually want to thank the Permanent Mission of Jamaica to the United Nations for hosting this event and this entire consortium of organizations, because this type of event is actually not usual in Model UN. Model UN is very decentralized. Everyone's doing their own conferences. But as Philippe mentioned, we can become more united and work together collaboratively. And I think part of this presentation is really just to show that SDG 17 in action is actually very prevalent at a high level, more so than we might be aware of in Model UN, and that we can continue to build on that over time. Next slide. So in general, the most common way that I've seen Model UN happen is that a school Model UN club would attend a conference that is usually hosted by another school or a university, and that is a traditional way of doing Model UN. However, there are a lot of Model UNs around the world that do not necessarily follow this format. And I believe Model UN is actually scalable through SDG 17, particularly partnerships with different organizations and institutions. And I'll just go through a couple quick examples of how Model UN has been partnering with the UN directly, with governments, with school districts, and also with NGOs and nonprofits. Next slide. And just a quick reminder, what is SDG 17? What are all the different targets? There's a lot on here, but specifically, I think where Model UN stands out is in 17.16 and 17.17, particularly around our opportunity to share knowledge and expertise with each other, as well as to engage in effective public-private and civil society partnerships in order to build the experience and resourcing strategies of partnerships. Next slide. So the first example is from the UN directly, is the United Nations MUN Youth Summit, which happens right before COVID. And this is where hundreds of students from over 30 countries got together. The Secretary General, Antonio Gutierrez, spoke at it. UNODC, UNICEF, the United Nations Department of Global Communications, the UN Special Envoy of the Secretary General on Youth, all of them spoke about how students can tap into existing SDG campaigns and bring that back to their Model UNs. And also students from Model UNs in Afghanistan, India, Qatar, Spain, the US, and other countries explained about the projects they have undertaken as well. So the UN had the opportunity, pre-COVID in-person conference, to host all the Model UNs to get the collaborations going already and to get the SDGs involved into the Model UN conferences. So SDG 17 is already in action in this way. Next slide. And I think even prior to that, the UN has been engaging in Model UNs. During Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was prolific at speaking at many Model UN conferences, both in person and as well as delivering virtual video addresses as well. And so it's very inspirational to Model UN's students when the Secretary General or the UN office or UN speakers go out and speak at the MUN conferences. So that's direct UN engagement, but there's more examples than that in the partnership. Next slide. So the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has a program called Education for Justice. This is their initiative to spread SDG 16s, particularly around how to integrate topics of crime prevention and rule of law to Model UNs. And so this partnership came about because UNODC had been visiting many Model UN conferences and then started collaborating with various Model UN organizations, including WFUNA, Best Delegate, and others. This was supported by the state of Qatar. So if we talk about private-public partnership, is a partnership of many levels of institutions. And eventually they created the E4J, Education for Justice curriculum, to train educators, university students, as well as UN field officers who could bring this back to their field offices, how to deliver Model UN in SDG 16. And the outcome was that this spread to many MUNs around the world. In the first year, they had 10,000 or more participants. Now they're starting to give out grants to Model UNs to incorporate SDG 16. And this project received the Secretary General's 2020 Innovation Award. So this is an example of very high-level SDG 17 engagement by the UN office with many Model UNs. Next slide. I think Sharon mentioned this earlier, the UNHCR Refugee Challenge. This went viral, so I assume a lot of people have heard of this one because they did direct outreach to Model UNs around the world, as well as through other organizations, including MyMUN on this call. And they challenged Model UNs to come up with solutions about the refugee crisis. And so they actually just published an article in April, so this month, that they mentioned that they've had over 40,000 students from 70 countries participate in the Refugee Challenge. So that is UNHCR doing direct outreach to Model UNs to spread the SDGs. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, next slide. I want to share an example from a government. This is the Uae Ministry of Education. So they are rolling out Model UN across their entire country through their public schools. And initially, they had sent 100 students to one of our programs, the Model UN Institute, to get trained. But afterward, they brought us, Best Delegate, over to the UAE and to train 50 educators in the training of trainer models so that those educators can bring that to their public schools and then also bring it to other educators in the UAE. And so they are doing a nationwide effort to really bring SDG 4, right, the quality education and Model UN education to all their public schools around their country. So that is an example of government. Next slide. At the subnational level, Model UN can be done at the school district level. So this is above the schools, and school district is many schools put together. And as an example from the United States, this is Idea Public Schools, 50,000 students, or I believe more, in their school district. And they have district-wide Model UN in terms of Model UN clubs across their district, and then having a district-wide MUN conference, also educator training for all their teachers in their district. Their funding source was grants from the US Department of Education. And now they are spreading their Model UN to various cities in South Texas, which is where they're based. They're in San Antonio and South Texas region, as well as moving into El Paso. So, and this has amazing outcomes. Many of these students are first generation, their parents have never gone to university. Many of them are immigrants. And one of the students that went to our programs, her name is Rebecca. She's the one on the right. And she was really shy, did Model UN. Became vice president of her Model UN club in high school, and then eventually got into Harvard on a full ride scholarship, first in her family to go to college. And now she is becoming a teacher and wanting to teach migrant youth in Boston. So that is an example of just one person's outcome through Model UN through this school district. All right, next slide. But it doesn't have to be that big. One of the longest institutions that we've worked with for over, I think, 13 years now is the Contra Costa County Model U United Nations. This is also in the United States in California. And it's just a school district simply putting on a Model UN conference for every school in their district. And this is a partnership between the school district, us, as well as bringing in a local university to help staff the program, in this case, UC Davis, and then partnering up with a local community college to provide the venue. This is the most basic, I think, example of a partnership that is possible for an institution or a school district to put together a Model UN, consolidating resources. Next slide. Moving on to NGOs. So Qatar Foundation is very prolific in supporting Model UN, including THIMUN, Qatar, and specifically a couple initiatives that came out of their office. One was the Director Training Institute. So they had asked us to come up with training for educators and built up several levels of curriculum. And that Director Training Institute is now being done in different places around the world. I know THIMUN Hague, THIMUN Singapore also uses Director Training Institute as well. And then THIMUN Qatar also, their office was contracted various people to help create the Arabic MUN program as well. So in Arabic language MUN. So this is an example of a foundation working with MUNs that already exist and MUN organizations to bring programs to train more educators and to bring MUN more accessible in different languages. Next slide. Another example of NGO, Northeast India International MUN. So Northeast India is in part of India where there are a lot of indigenous youth. And this organization came about by attending a UN for MUN conference that Bill Yodev hosted when he was working at the United Nations. They liked the idea, partnered with Best Delegate to bring back that conference to their country. And then how they got the funding was partnering up with UNDP, local office, as well as local government funding. So this is a collaboration, again, private-public partnership. And the outcome was this is the first conference in their entire seven sister states in Northeast India that have a lot of indigenous population. And this is the first one where they had it for for their people. And they rotated it across the different states so that every state could get the institutional capacity building in Model UN. So this is a great example of various levels of public-private partnership. Next slide. Another one that I think a lot of organizations here are familiar with, Salam Center for Peace. The founder of this organization did Model UN through online MUN, through Best Delegate, through Director Training Institute. Basically had a lot of support through all the different MUN organizations here, and then founded her own organization. And this is to teach Arab Israeli youth in Israel. And so it's an amazing program to bring together dialogue that's very necessary. And this is, the partnership is really important because it's bringing in outside expertise so that she can bring Model UN to her people as well. And then one more example that's also in this organization, in this talk. Next slide. Last example is WFUNA and all the UNAs. And WFUNA has partnered up with many different organizations in order to put on the WFUNA International Model UN in New York and also around the world. And that is to put on the conference, but they also bring in, through partnerships, many students from different countries through the United Nations associations in the different countries. I know they work closely with UNA Jamaica, they work closely with UNA South Africa, they work with UNA Pakistan and many others to help bring students, right? Because students, if they are just in their schools and there's no Model UN, there's no opportunity to participate unless there is another organization facilitating that participation. That's where the UNAs come in and WFUNA's network with them. And WFUNA also partners with many different organizations such as WELAND, Worldview, right? Private companies that help bring Model UN to China, India, other countries, and to organize those conferences there because that's just what's more efficient. They partner up with UN missions such as the one we're on right now and also at the MUN conferences. And they've also partnered up with Best Delegate early on. So this is an example of multiple layers of private-public partnership to bring Model UN, not just to New York and to have hundreds of students from around, thousands of students around the world join, but also to other countries as well. So that's just a quick example. I'm sure I didn't cover everything like Sharon mentioned. I might not be aware of different ones out there, and there's many other examples. But final slide is that I really believe that SDG 17 is one of the keys to bringing the SDGs to all youth. And I believe Model UNs can pursue this more. And so this is what's going to make Model SDGs scalable and sustainable to and also bring Model UN to everyone. So thank you for your time and thank you for all your collaborations.
Thank you so much, KFC. And I must say I loved the Jamaican touch there at the end. It is indeed so inspiring to see how Model UN can be used as an instrument of global peace and harmony as youth champion a pacific way towards international accord and setting a great example for others to follow. It's so great to see. Thank you so much, KFC, for reminding us of that ability of MUN. Folks, we are now heading into the third fragment of our panel discussion, where we'll be canvassing Model UN and youth action for the SDGs. Stay tuned. This is bound to be a stimulating dialogue. And who better to help guide this discussion than Matthew and Shennon from Model UN Impact and Finn Carlson, WFUNA's Model UN Program Associate, three eminently qualified individuals for this discussion at hand. So Matthew, Shennon, I see you here, so take it away.
MUN Impact is unique. It's unique in the MUN community because we aren't about conferences or paid participation. I'm Matthew O.
And I'm Shannon Sequeira, and we come to you today representing a 100% student-driven organization that has conceptualized a new way of viewing and growing the Model UN community. MUN Impact's goal is to democratize the Model UN to make it free to anyone that wants to participate. This presentation outlines how we do that, from our student leaders responsible for creating programs, the programs themselves. Afterwards, we'll share how you can get involved with MUN Impact with your talent and interest. Next slide, please.
But first, a video introducing our community of 33,000 students from 170 countries.
Please confirm to me this works.
Right now, youth from around the world are creating an innovative and self-sustaining leadership incubator.
Open and accessible to secondary and university students.
Fueling and driving change to advance sustainable development goals.
In just 2 years, MUN Impact, a global student-led non-profit, has experienced phenomenal growth in its many programs.
From global online Model UN debates,
youth-led summits and conferences,
student-created publications and podcasts,
global weeks of action,
and a host of other creative initiatives.
Students from every continent have come together to advance the SDGs
in ways that are meaningful and relevant to us.
In the process, we are learning critical 21st century skills
that will help solve our planet's most pressing problems.
These skills aren't learned in textbooks.
They are learned by doing.
And that's what we do at MUN Impact. We dream.
We create.
We network.
We build.
We are laying for the foundation for the world we want.
MUN Impact has built a network, reaching youth in over 170 countries.
Many of whom have never had an opportunity
to engage and collaborate with others outside their local communities.
We have the energy,
the passion, and the ideas to bring meaningful change to our communities.
An investment in us will yield dividends for decades to come.
The United Kingdom,
Japan,
Egypt,
Argentina,
Germany,
Israel,
Bangladesh,
Czech Republic,
Kuwait,
Malaysia,
Nigeria,
New Zealand,
Singapore,
India,
Ghana,
the United States of America,
Portugal,
Pakistan. We are MUN Impact.
To support our 7 main programs, along with a dozen other side events and initiatives, we have an active student leadership team of over 300 middle school, high school, and university volunteers across 7 global regions with national representation from countries such as Canada, Uzbekistan, and Myanmar. The dedication and talent of these student leaders are what allows us to maintain 100% free programs for an even larger community of thousands of program participants. Just an example out of many of other programs, our high school outreach team is composed of student volunteers managing from over 120 active partnerships with school clubs, MUN conferences, and civil society organizations across the world for Model UN and SDG activities. In this year alone, we have completed 51 partnership projects, including joint conferences and workshops, in-person community service projects, social media campaigns, and so much more. Next slide, please.
Not only does MUN Impact connect digitally savvy students across the world for MUN and the SDGs, but we are also actively seeking to bring quality MUN programming to places where it simply does not exist. We're building MUN clubs in under-resourced regions with the help of local educators from our national affiliates, MUN Impact Nigeria and MUN Impact Ecuador. These images are the fruit of their labor. Children who are now able to enrich their learning environment with MUN and the SDGs. To support the work of our partners in Nigeria and Ecuador, Our student volunteers have also started a MUN Kickstarters Club, which raises funds to supply each club with a $50 packet consisting of MUN handbooks, country placards, and SDG learning materials. To date, we've raised enough money to support 30 clubs, and we've already built and are actively supplying 10 clubs in Nigeria from Osun State in the southwest to Yobe State in the north. Ensuring all students have access to MUN and information about the SDGs is a core part of our philosophy, and we are carrying it out every day through initiatives like these. Next slide, please.
From the very beginning, a major part of our mission has been to provide free, quality SDG programming to a community of digitally connected students. In fact, we created the world's first virtual MUN platform, Online Model UN, in 2011. OMUN is run by student leaders that organize monthly debate themes surrounding the SDGs. Our experience in running debates and conferences in a virtual mode gave us the resilience needed to not just survive, but thrive under the COVID-19 pandemic, during which we established MUN at Home precisely to provide virtual options to students locked down around the world. Unlike OMUN, it is a regular 2-week course led by experienced student mentors focused on building MUN skills and teaching the SDGs to participants. Combined, our MUN programs have impacted 42,000 students from all over the globe and counting. Next slide, please.
Finally, reflecting our commitment to supporting the SDGs, our 100K Deeds program galvanizes students within and outside our community to complete various acts for the SDGs and submit them to our online database. These acts range from beach cleanups to running local advocacy events, and 40,000 of such deeds have been collected since the beginning of 2021. We have created a data-driven ecosystem where our student leaders submit deeds that are then displayed on our SDG dashboard made in partnership with Esri. Through our partnership, we have gained unique and data-driven insights into the interests of youth as they relate to the SDGs. Also located on this dashboard is a myriad of educative SDG materials translated into all UN languages by our highly dedicated student leaders. What we created here is a community of doers, people willing to take small actions to collectively make a big impact on achieving the SDGs. Be it by incubating student talent, sponsoring clubs in under-resourced countries, running free and virtual MUN programs, or cultivating direct action for the SDGs, MUN Impact's message of democratizing MUN and its enriching experiences is clear. If you wish to support our mission, please check out the links in the chat box at this time.
Thank you so much, Matthew and Shennon, for sharing that pertinent information. And in keeping with what they just shared, I'm now going to hand over to Finn Carlson from WFUNA.
Thank you so much, Nahjae. I hope you can hear me okay.
Loud and clear.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for this ECOSOC Youth Forum side event. I've been involved with Model UN since my high school days, and I've found it really inspiring to listen to everyone. Even though I've had the chance to work with many of you already, I think it's been incredible so far to hear about all the positive contributions that Model UN makes to students around the world. And I want to sort of pick up on that and talk a little bit about what we do before I talk in particular about our Act to Impact program, which I'll get to in a minute. Just a brief history on our Model UN program, which is a fairly new one compared to many of the other organizations here. So our WFUNA International Model UN was founded only in 2014, so we're in our 8th year now. And if you compare it to a lot of the other Model UNs here, we're a very young program. However, that hasn't held us back from having basically a focus on the SDGs from basically the get-go. Starting in 2015, when the SDGs were passed, all of our conferences had either a theme relating to the SDGs or had a multitude of different discussion items that related to one or more of the SDGs. And in particular, since the Youth Forum focuses this year on SDG 4, 5, 14, 15, and 17. I wanted to highlight that our simulation, or we had a range of simulations, and you see them listed out on screen here. We had the second committee of the GA, the third committee of the GA, the CSW, Security Council, ILO, High Level Political Forum, UNFF, UNEA, and the CCPCJ all relate topics that link to SDG 4, 5, 14, and 15, but also covered many of the other remaining SDGs that aren't a focus for the Youth Forum throughout our simulations. And something that's really unique to our approach is that we really emphasize teaching consensus to students on matters that need, or on issues that are relevant to the SDGs. So coming together and jointly getting the job done, which is, I think we can all agree, the only way we'll be able to achieve the SDGs, especially as already mentioned, we're a little bit behind now. So we've sort of covered the Model UN teaching aspect, or students learning about the SDGs through Model UN. But Philippe, if you can hit the slide now. What we really felt like was important to also take that enthusiasm you see in a lot of young students participating in Model UN and take it to the next level. At a lot of Model UN conferences, students come in, they're there for a week, they learn a lot, and they're so passionate about these issues, and they really want to get involved, but often don't really know how. So in 2019, we decided that we really wanted to take this forward further. We wanted to encourage students and equip students who came to our conferences with the necessary tools and skills to be agents of change in their own communities and really become multipliers of change for the SDGs. And that's how our Act to Impact program was born, which offers our participants, so students who come to our conferences, a professional development training free of charge. So after the conference, students can just sign up for it. And throughout the program, they learn how to design, implement, and evaluate community projects on any of the SDGs. So the students pick the SDGs they want to focus on within their project. And then from our end, we provide the training that is necessary on how do you even conceptualize a project, what are some of the things you need to pay attention to and whatnot, and then oversee the implementation of that project as well. So we have regular meetings with them to check in how things are going. The core part of this program is that we define Act to Impact into 4 stages, or the project that they work on. We break that down into 4 stages. As said, it's entirely taught and supervised by us. It's been developed in collaboration with the Project Management Institute. And essentially, and I'm going to try to keep this a little bit shorter, so I'm just going to glance over this. We support students in a defining stage. What is our project? What are we trying to achieve? In the planning stage, okay, what do we need to do? What surveys do we need to conduct? What input do we need to get from the communities around their needs? Which then transitions into the doing stage, actually implementing the project, running it, getting it out off the ground, and then into the reviewing stage. How are things going? What needs to be adjusted, etc. And at the moment, so we have Act to Impact broken down into project cycles based on when our conferences take place. And from our last conference, which took place in the fall, we're currently working with 10 university students in Uganda. But we've worked with students from other places in the world as well. But I'm highlighting these in particular because, Philippe, slide, please. Just to wrap up, I wanted to highlight one of the examples that came out of this current round of Act to Impact, and that is a project on SDG 4, quality education, relevant to this youth forum, of course, which is currently being run by seven of the university students from Uganda, and their project is to set up different digital e-learning labs and soft life skill trainings throughout their communities in Uganda, aimed at students in higher learning institutions and colleges, because they identified that there was a concrete lack of understanding of how e-learning works, and that there was a lack of understanding of the opportunities that come with e-learning. And this is partially because people don't necessarily know how to utilize e-learning tools, but also don't have access to them. So some of the actions that they set out that they want to do, and this is an ongoing project, I have to say. So some of these might be implemented further than others, but some of the concrete actions they had set out to go through are promoting new initiatives and innovations to the education sector in Uganda, training teachers and students regarding e-learning, and stocking libraries with digital e-learning equipment. So both providing the training on how to use the equipment, but also making the equipment available for students. And with that, they wanted to promote quality education and enhance soft life skills trainings to students in colleges and institutions of higher learning, but also promote the professional career guidance to young people and enable them to become job creators rather than job seekers, bringing them economic independence, and which then helps drive forward many of the other SDGs, of course. Other things they wanted to achieve was enhance the quality of learning and teaching styles to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of learners, or improve user accessibility and time flexibility to engage learners in the learning process. And this is, as said, a group of model UNers that came to our conference and was really enthusiastic about taking all that they have learned at the conference and amplifying it within their communities to make sure it's not just them who are there to benefit from their participation in Model UN, but their entire community. And with that, Model UN students can become agents of change and can be drivers of the SDGs. And as I said, I just wanted to highlight one of these examples, but this is essentially how our Act to Impact program works. So really trying to take it to the next level from the base SDG education that so many Model UNs do, and really enable students to take it further, that engagement. If you're interested in learning more, you can of course visit the MyMUN website. There is some information there. Or if you want to participate in this yourself, you're welcome to come by for one of our future conferences, and then afterwards be an Act to Impact participant. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for being with us today. As I said, it's been a pleasure, and looking forward to the rest of the discussion.
Amazing. Finn, Matthew, Shennon, thank you all so much. To me, it's palpably obvious that MUN serve as incubators of SDG activism, both locally and internationally, as you spark conversations that engender actions towards the creation of a nation that is hell-bent on the realization of sustainable development. And what I love about the initiatives that you all have highlighted is that you're working with youth for youth. And I think that dynamic is so important for youth development. Thank you all so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now chartering into our final substantive section of our discussion today. So far, you've learned about Model UN's role in SDG awareness, you've learned about encouraging global cooperation, and now you've just learned about catalyzing youth action on the SDGs. So of course, those of you who have not joined the Model United Nations organization may want to know how, or if you already are a member of a MUN, you may want to know exactly how you can join another. If you fall into either of these two categories, then this panel is just for you. Joining me now from MyMUN is Jonas Bruns, and from WiseMe is Daniel Jindes, to illustrate how you can form part of this world-changing movement. So I'm going to yield the floor now to Jonas to kickstart the discussion. Hi, Jonas.
Hi, Nahjae. Thanks so much for the very kind introduction, and thanks to you and everyone else who's been part of making this possible, who's been part of the organization. Now, of course, the first one to mention in that regard is the Mission of Jamaica, but also I think Philippe deserves a big shout out for his efforts on that, and many others as well, namely many of the previous speakers. But of course, the elephant in the room, I mean, we've now really gotten very hyped on what MUN is, but the elephant in the room is, how do I get there? How do I get to the moon? And this is what we're going to talk about in the next couple of minutes. Just as a little bit of background, I'm Jonas. I started doing MUN back in high school, which is too long ago to admit. And I remember I was at an MUN conference. I really tried to, like, I'm studying engineering. I'm based in Germany, and being a little obsessed with with efficiency, we really try to do what we can do best for the benefit of the MUN community, namely to make it more accessible for everyone. This is why we're building software for you to participate in MUN, to sign up to it, to find the information necessary. And this is what we're doing to achieve what we framed as our vision, that every student around the world participate in at least one MUN in their student life. And so how do you do it? How do people start getting engaged into MUN? And for this, the simple answer is, well, of course, you just sign up. But that's already where it starts to rise the questions. Where do I find out about MUNs? Where do I find out about like all the different options? Which conferences are there? How do I go there? When are they taking place? Is there a fee associated to it? And all of this. And so what we're doing is we're offering a platform, MyMUN.com, where conferences can list all the information on their conference. So we have one big database. MyMUN is the largest database for MUN conferences. And so delegates from around the world, or those who are yet to become so, are going to MyMUN every single day and minute to find out where is my next MUN conference going to be. And then I can maneuver all the payment options and preferences for which country I want to represent and so on. So this is really the opening funnel to the MUN world. But for many, I think most of the speakers including, this is only the starting point. It's the opening door to a world of MUN, but rarely ever the final step. And so what I would say is that there's, fundamentally speaking, two levels you can then kind of rise through. Of course, you're going to sign up to your first MUN and you're going to be part of it. You may even participate as a chairperson, maybe even as a secretary general. But this is not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how you can start creating an MUN vibe, an MUN community, even without having any resources to begin with. And I think that, for example, MUN Impact already mentioned a few of their programs there, because fundamentally speaking, what I believe is that not only do you want to sign up for a conference, but also you want to find your local MUN club and connect with them. Go to MUN conferences together. And this is what, for example, I personally did when I just moved to Paris for a semester abroad, is that this was a way to connect to people in Paris, to boost my French speaking skills, to get to know the good, bars and restaurants. And all of this is partly due to being able to connect with the MUN community. So number one, I sign up to my MUN conference, but that's not enough. I'm going to join an MUN club, which I may find online if I look for MUN Paris, to give an example. But there's one more thing, and this is what MUN Impact talked about partially, is to start an MUN club. And this is a topic that is particularly close to my heart. I actually never started an MUN club, but I rebuilt one from the ground up, because with MUN clubs, most people do MUN just for a few years. All the speakers on this panel are odd exceptions, but fundamentally speaking, most people, they're only in college for a few years. They might do an internship and a semester abroad. So fundamentally speaking, people only stick around within MUN for 2 to 3 years. So these clubs, these organizations are very fragile organizations to preserve the knowledge, preserve how it all works. And so this is where I think all of the speakers of this panel, all the partners of the World MUN Day, kick in. They're your asset if you want to create an MUN club, to share knowledge, to share a little bit of how this or that might work. And so my biggest call to action is, number one, go to the moon. Number two, join your MUN clubs in your city, wherever you may be. And if there is none, then it's number three, create an MUN club with the help of the MUN community that's out there. That's all of the people that spoke on this panel, me included. And so I'm very much looking forward to building that, so that one day our vision of having every student take part in at least MUN, in at least one MUN in their student life, is not just a crazy vision, but an achievable dream. And I think WiseMe has some thing to add to that. What do you think, Nahjae?
David, are you here with us?
He is. He should be joining in just a second. Jonas, what was that final question again to Nahjae?
Oh, I was just wondering if what WiseMe had to contribute to that, and then we get David swinging by. David, good to see you.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Thank you so much.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So yeah, I've been listening to all of the great speakers, and I love all the points that really came up. You know, if I went back to KFC from Best Delegate, you know, talking about becoming more united is MUN, or Finn talking about e-learning and the challenges of adopting that into MUN, and then right back to Jonas, where he's talking about finding the right MUN, and in addition to that, the attrition of people in MUN. They die out after some time, and that's what really inspired us to create WiseMe as a whole. So let's hop on to the next slide. You know, WiseMe really strives to be the learning, the leading online resource for the MUN community, so we don't lose that information as we grow. You know, so when it comes down to it, we keep on educating the next generation of MUNers, so they don't start off with a blank, you know, canvas of how do I really start MUN? How do I write that speech? What, you know, what topics are we, you know, discussing, or MUN topics, and you know, if it's the sustainable development goals, and how do we actually implement it? And of course, we're always going to tie it right back to the sustainable development goals, right? So it's all about providing the tools that someone needs to succeed in MUN and excel in today's world. Well, tomorrow's world. Let's move on. Just let's take a look at some numbers. Just in the last 12 months, we've had over 500,000 users come out, you know, and actually check out our site, you know, which means probably a lot more on the web looking for MUN related guides. And we'll show you exactly what people are looking for and how they're getting, you know, interacting with the MUN, and how we're adding subtle elements of the sustainable development goals directly into the education that we're doing online. Because like said earlier, you know, other people brought up in earlier discussions, it's about building it to scale, and the world is flat nowadays. So we're creating a level playing field and giving out the core information for how to participate in MUN to the best of their abilities, essentially for free. Let's move on. Next slide. First, let's look at some numbers, some interesting things. It's interesting to know that there are more females than males actually interested in MUN based off the demographic information that we collected. So that's an interesting tidbit. And let's move on. The ages, as we'd expect. 50% under 24, and then it moves on. And anyone over 35, we're kind of looking at the next generation of teachers or you know, or chairs trying to figure out, how do I teach MUN to the next generation? Because not only do we need to find a way to educate those that are interested in participating, we also need to educate those that want to educate the next generation, if they are familiar with MUN or not. And this is where a tool like, you know, a resource like WiseMe really has the opportunity to laying out the foundation and not only pushing or nudging, but suggesting different ideas or articles or topics, like discussing the Sustainable Development Goals within the topic ideas. And we'll take a look at that in the next slide. Here are the top countries that are interested, but let's move on just to move on to the next one. This is the most interesting one over here. Some of the leading guides kind of really show some more perspective. Here you've got some numbers of page views, how much time people are spending actually investing in, if it's writing their position paper or writing an opening speech. And if we look further down, number 5 is really MUN chairing scripts, which show how many people are really interested in becoming a chair. How do they become a chair? What do they say and how do they say it? And then number 6, which is really interesting, is topic ideas. Since people, if they're looking to get to MUN or teach MUN or chair in MUN, they're looking for topics. And this is where we, with the power of the internet, get to lay the foundation to say, these are the topics to discuss, pushing them in that direction, which creates a bigger influence, which we can't always do on one-on-one, because we've only got to we're only one person. That's what pushed us to go online. That's why I like going back to the e-learning. I like going back to creating guides which are evergreen, continue educating the next generation in all things MUN and every way possible that we can do that. And I believe the last slide is some interesting things, just because this has been going on over the last few years. We're already talking about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We see when some other things like pandemics, they really affect us. They affect us, because this is still a social activity, and when big events around the world happen, unfortunately, it all suffers. But the beauty of it is that we can see it's all coming back. Everyone wants to go to new conferences, if it's online, if it's hybrid, or in person. The demand has come back, and that's why if it's MyMUN, to go find your conference. If it's KFC from Best Delegate, that it has to do with training in a lot of in-person type of training, then there's still a need, and it's coming back, and it's coming back stronger than ever, and we're excited to see what's coming next in this sphere. So thank you very much. And of course, check out WiseMe if you really want any more guides. The core is all free. We're there too. That's why we created it. We created it to give back and remove the barrier to entry. Of course, we're going to offer other type of one-on-one training, but it's all going to be online. It's all going to be to scale. It's all about the e-learning, and we're there to, if someone ever says, hey, I can't afford that, hey, it's all about giving back. That's why we're creating it. It's all about creating a better world, and that's why I believe we all kind of got into MUN. Our love for MUN, our love for the activities and where it can take and inspire people to grow, and that's, we can refer to back to previous stories. If it's KFC talking about how one of the delegates went and progressed into achieving a full scholarship, all from those activities. Of course, it's one piece, but they're all building blocks. So thank you very much.
All right, much obliged, gentlemen, for that spirited discussion. So, my dear viewers around the globe, you have no excuse not to join this powerful movement. You now know exactly how to do so. Model UN is a force to be reckoned with within the SDG framework, and it serves as an exemplar that many, including our current world leaders, can aspire to. If you are concerned about the future and believe young people should play a part in shaping that future, then join a Model UN organization close to you today. At this time, we will be convening the question and answer section, where all my fellow panelists will be joining me on stage. Now, we have shared a surfeit of information with you, so it is more than understandable, nay, expected, that you will have some questions for us. And to do so, you can simply drop your question in the chat box, or I've been informed and I now see that Airmeet has a question and answer function. So you can also use that box there to engage in dialogue with the panelists. Now, we also like to know where in the world you are joining us from today. So if you can tell us your name, your country, and as well as your question in the chat, we'd definitely be appreciative of that. So for instance, I'd have Nahjae, Jamaica, and then my question. Additionally, kindly indicate if you are directing your question to a specific panelist or organization that has presented in any of the panels. Otherwise, I'll simply throw your inquiry to any of the panelists or the one I feel can best answer your question. So, do we have any questions just yet? I do believe I got one personally, and this one was directed to Leah from our first segment talking about MUN's role in raising awareness of the SDGs. This person, Leah, was asking how your journey with MUN's first begun.
That's a great question. I actually just spoke on that at the closing ceremonies of our conference on Thursday. Basically, I grew up in a very blue-collar family, and we didn't know about the UN at all. And I was talked into attending Model UN by a friend in high school who lured me in by saying that there was likely free food at absolutely in love with diplomacy. I saw that there was a pathway forward to a better world. And because of that, I took international relations in university, and now I work for the Canadian government. And that was never my life plan at all. I'm one of the first people in my family to achieve any form of post-secondary, and it's all because of Model UN. I found this forum that spoke to me, and this world opened up to me where I said, "Wow, I never would have known about this otherwise." So I'm very grateful to that friend who brought me in, and I love doing what I can to help others find their own way into Model UN, because it's an incredible forum.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leah. And I too can relate to such a story because my journey with MUNs also began in high school. I actually started with women in 2015. Not giving away my age here because I'm still have a little youth left in me. All right. I am still looking. I'm not sure if I see any other questions in the chat. Let me just pop over and make sure. I do see participants.
Can we ask questions to us, maybe?
Oh, certainly, sure. Do you have a question, Philippe?
Well, maybe to sort of all of you. What is it that you see as the most important thing to focus on in the future of MUN? Because we've all done conferences. I would say we're all very good at either creating conferences or creating the in between. But what is something new in MUN you'd like to focus on maybe in the future? Something you haven't got around to, or something you think is important that you'd like to start? I don't know if, Nahjae, please, maybe there's something you've thought about as well. I sort of open it to everyone there.
Definitely. I certainly agree that MUNs are central where youth participation is concerned. And we're in the decade of action now and recognize that the world is tremendously off track where the SDGs are concerned. But I think that MUNs are a great way of helping our countries, our nations, the global community at large to get back on track where these are concerned. Our young people are having conversations about things that matter to them. And they're not only having conversations, but they're propounding solutions, youth-oriented solutions on how we can get back on track and ensuring that young people form part of the solution. And I think if we are a part of that inclusive process, we form part of the decision-making conversations and those initiatives regarding the SDGs and the Sustainable Development Framework, then that is one thing that we should definitely have been focused on. Translating what we're learning about the UN into that kinetic action that happens on the ground. We saw that in Finn's speaking about the initiative he's carrying out in Africa, we saw that earlier in many of the initiatives that you all spoke about, where you're taking these learnings and you're not just having it in your head, but these abstract concepts, but you're putting them to good use in your communities. And I think if we have that solution-oriented approach to what we're doing in MUNs and we encourage that and we stimulate that activity much more, then that should definitely be a great focus of MUNs in the remaining part of this decade of action, certainly. But I think I like the question, and I'm going to go in order of my panelists. So I'm going to start with, I just heard from Leah, and I think she kind of answered that question in talking about her journey to MUNs. But Eric, what are your thoughts on how we can work on this, or what should the focus of MUNs be until 2030?
Well, I just listened to you and you answered it perfectly. But I would say yes. I mean, the conferences are there. I think that's been the tradition. That I just to follow up on Leah, I was now my age is coming up, but I joined THIMUN in 1976. So
Wow.
THIMUN was started in the beginning of the 70s. I was living in Vienna, and it had started up here in The Hague. So I did a full circle when I came and joined the board a few years ago. And definitely, I think conferences has been the basis of it for so many years, whether it's THIMUN or any other conference. And therefore, I think you're right in saying that the next phase is what's happening now. And it's fantastic to listen to the other members of the panel on how are we moving forward to make sure that the impact is there. And I think that's where a lot of these organizations that have come up in the last few years can help young people to help themselves in becoming more actionable than maybe from a conference. I think the conferences are good there to kind of get you started and kind of get you thinking and taking that initiative and to moving forward. But I think it's just as important that there's a way of then supporting the next phase of your development in actions.
Absolutely. I just saw a message from Bill, a great friend of mine, who says that he thinks that the future of MUNs is to find ways for the voice of youth via MUNs to find ways to be included in deliberations at the UN. And I also think that is something that is absolutely of importance and that must be given greater significance going forward. So we have some questions pouring in the chat, and these two are particularly directed to some of the panelists. So the first one goes to KFC. This person says that they have 20 years of MUN they've been doing, a lot of experience in it, and they'd like to know if you have ever had an MUN burnout. And if so, what is the best way to overcome this MUN burnout?
I don't know if I've had MUN burnout, but I think there are certain conferences that are draining, maybe of energy, particularly maybe when there's a lot of actions that are done in MUN that don't seem that productive because people are trying to win awards or there's just a lot of personal politics when trying to organize a conference. And for me, actually, it's taking a step back and realizing this is the real world, though. There are going to be people like this that we're going to interact with. And that itself is a lesson, not just the simulation, but the outside the simulation is part of it. But I also think outside of that, is finding what's the solution to burnout, right? And I think the antidote is finding what is your passion in Model UN. It's actually one of the core values in Best Delegate, and I realized everyone has a different definition for passion for Model UN. Just like here, we're all working on different aspects of Model UN, but we're all passionate MUNers. And so for me, that was volunteering with the United Nations Association of the USA when I was in school and putting on free conferences for youth. For me, that was taking my travel team to go to conferences. That was helping my college start conferences. There's many different ways to engage in Model UN. And I think that's the magic of it, is that it is decentralized. There's not you must do MUN this way. We can all do MUN our different ways. And I think the way to combat burnout is to really find our passion and our voice and our path in contributing and giving back to Model UN.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I fully agree with that. Another question comes to us, and this one is directed to Eric. This person is saying that they are interested in having THIMUN at their school, and they'd want to know if THIMUN Positions is an invited-only conference or if it's something where they can apply.
We have different THIMUN associated THIMUN conferences. We have about 50 out in the world. And yes, basically, if you have a club that you've started up, there's certain procedures to become affiliated with us. As far as the THIMUN conference in The Hague or in Singapore or in Qatar, it's the way we're set up, which is a little bit different maybe than some of the others, is that we work with schools. So we work with clubs. So you can't just sign up as an individual, but you have to have a club normally within the school setup. So we're a little bit different than just signing up and joining. But you can go to our website, THIMUN and then find it there.
Lord, thank you so much. So, Alex, that was the answer to your question. I got a personal message directed to our representatives from MUN Impact, Matthew and Shennon, but I see Matthew's here, so I'll direct this question to you. This person is a teacher from, I think that's a typo, but this person is a teacher, and she's asking, at what age do you think it's too young or too old? And I don't think there's ever a stage that is too old, but she's saying, what time is there ever too young to introduce Model UN simulations to students? So she teaches at a secondary school in rural Africa, and she wants to know at what age she can begin introducing MUNs to her students. And as someone who runs a student-driven organization, she'd love to solicit your opinion on that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm more than happy to provide some insight on that. And just for context, by the way, I'm actually a high school student myself. I'm a 17-year-old from Austin, Texas in the US. And I'm very honored to be here with everyone today and to be able to share the progress that MUN Impact has made. So to answer your question, frankly, one of our flagship programs, which is OMUN, has a junior OMUN derivative, which is provided to middle school students. So students as young as around 10 years old can start debating and getting involved. And I believe we've also run experiments in the past with groups that are younger than that. And obviously, it depends really on the subject matter at hand. Like, for example, when we were discussing issues related to SDG 16 or war or gender-based violence, there has to be a certain kind of consciousness of the subject matter. But otherwise, when we're discussing the SDGs and how we're going to achieve them together by 2030, that's a conversation that really ought to be held as early as possible to as many people as possible. And so in that sense, as long as your students are capable of communicating, their thoughts, being able to speak their feelings and their thoughts, we more than believe in encouraging SDG-related conversations, whether you want them in a more informal manner or a manner that's more similar to an actual MUN format. And as they age, they will learn about the rules of procedure. They can start attending conferences. They can get more involved, and their experience and their skill will only grow throughout those years. So yeah, thank you for your question.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matthew, so much. And I do believe that, as it was perfectly said by Philippe in the chat, that 0 years old is perhaps too young, but from there it's probably okay. And I think we just have to find those age-appropriate modalities and mechanisms of helping them to find their ways to sustainable development. But there's no age that is too young or too old to learn about the SDGs and the wonderful work that the UN is doing. In that segue, I am going to direct a question to Finn that I also just got in my private chat. This person says that they went to a women event in 2018 and they have been inspired to start their own Model UN in their country. They're asking how they can go about doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, great to see some WELAND or previous WELAND participants join us and still stay connected and be involved. And yeah, so when it gets to establishing your own club, I mean, I don't think there's one right way to do it. We don't necessarily have a procedure that we recommend you do, but generally, my recommendation is to look for some like-minded people within your school or college where you are. Maybe you're still in contact with some of the people who went to, be it WELAND or any other Model UN you attended. And start having conversations with them. Hey, do we want to start something like this as well here at our school? And you can start small. You don't have to, instantly launch into hosting your own conference, which has thousands of participants. You can start small with just, sessions in a classroom after school with 10, 15 students who might be interested, and then sort of take it from there. I remember when I was in college, I studied a program that we were the first year to ever do it. So there was no extracurricular activities, etc. And we started our Model UN club there. And in the first year, we struggled to even get like 20 people in for a mock Model UN session like every 3 months. And I know by now, a few years later down the line, they have 50 to 60 students turn up on a weekly basis for these mock sessions. So really, I think, as I said, find some like-minded people and of course, you can shoot for the moon, and that's amazing, and you can end up with hundreds of people right away. But also, don't be disappointed if you end up with smaller numbers, because that's how you start out. You get people involved, they come into the door or into the classroom, they're interested, they'll tell their friends about it, and that's how it starts spreading out. And then, of course, in the next step, if you say, okay, we've been doing these mock sessions for a while, you can look at going to a conference, to not just do it within your school. And that might be a local conference or wherever. I don't know where the person who asked the question is connecting from, but I think almost every UN member state, there is a model UN in almost every UN member state nowadays. So you can probably find a local conference that's not too expensive to attend or too far away. So you don't need to fly halfway around the world right away. Those are all things I think you can work towards too, but can definitely start out with on a smaller scale level. That would be my advice. I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to pitch in, because I think a lot of us have started model UN clubs or have helped others start them. So I don't want to pretend I'm the ultimate authority here on how to do it, and would love to turn it over to one or two of the other panelists who might have some more input to give. I think that would be great.
Okay, I am mindful of the time, so I'm just going to give two people quickly the opportunity to add on to what Fid has just said, if there are any panelists who are inclined to do so. I see David has his mic open.
Yeah. Kind of goes back to our the talk, and Finn, while you were talking, I googled how to start MUN club, and within the first 10 results you've got best delegate and wise me, and which kind of goes back to saying, and what's even more amazing is, Finn, what you bring up are the similar outlines to what we talk about, and of course elaborate on other types of guides that one might want to go through. I know that WiseMe, we also created even email templates that you might need in order to send out to your teachers or organizers, depending on who's creating it. But creating one foundation to give people the tools to start an MUN is kind of the goal that we're always looking to achieve.
Thank you so much, David. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add on to that before I close out this segment? Alrighty, so before I end this session, I'm going to give all my panelists a final opportunity to leave some parting words with our panelists. We have our participants rather. We have persons joining from all corners of the globe who have chosen to spend their time with us today, and they've heard about MUNs and its usefulness, MUNs and their SDG awareness, MUNs and SDG 17, speaking of course about global partnerships. They've heard about MUNs and youth action. Is there anything that in closing you'd like to leave them with? And I'm going to work my way back up the list. I'm going to start with you, David, and head my way right back up to Leah.
Let's start with me. Okay, for me, it's always been about how do I give back? How do I connect? When I taught MUN, I always said it's not really about politics. I'm not here to teach you about how to be a delegate, but more how to win friends and influence people, and how to enrich yourself, for everything you do in life. And that's how I see MUN. And my goal is always, how do I give back for the next future generation?
Thank you, David. That's so kind of you. All right, Jonas isn't here, so I'm going to go to Finn.
Sorry, minor technical issues. Yeah, so I think my main, or my 2 points would be, A, if you are here and you haven't done a Model UN yet, do get involved, even if it might seem like it's something that's not entirely down to what you're usually interested in. There are so many different aspects to Model UN, and that can just be making international friends or discussing hardcore politics topics. And the second one is, if you've been doing Model UN, make sure to encourage your friends to get involved as well. Same thing, if they're not entirely into it, convince them that there are so many other cool things. And they can go to one conference. If they don't like it, no one is going to force them back. But spread the news, spread the word how great Model UN is. Do get involved yourself, get your friends and colleagues and schoolmates involved, and hopefully we'll all see each other in person at a future Model UN somewhere in the world.
Definitely. So David is telling us to pay it forward and finish telling us to spread the love. Matthew, what do you have to share?
I think by today in 2022, we all understand the concept that kids and students are our future. And so in that sense, there's this expectation that these teenagers, kids, and students of today will be expected to step up tomorrow. But I'm just going to leave everyone with a rhetorical question here. Who said they can't step up right now? So yeah, thank you.
All right, wonderful. Kids, and I always say that, not to, interjecting, but kids are not just posterity. They're not just our tomorrow. They're today too. And if you want them to help shape our tomorrow, they must form part of today's discussions. But that's another panel discussion for another time. I'm going to head it to you, KFC.
I always use the word model UN community, but everyone has a different definition of it. Who is it part of the model UN community? To me, it should be hundreds of millions, if not billion people or more that are part of the model UN community. And because everyone can use model UN and should be contributing to sustainable development goals in some way. So when it comes to opportunity, our entire community has exponential opportunity to help impact other people and to have them be part of the community. So everyone that's here and everyone that is watching, you are part of the Model UN community and you have a big chance to create impact in this world. Thank you.
Awesome. Heading the representative from MUNers Across Borders, Philippe.
Hello. So obviously, I can only echo what everyone else said. I would say that, MUN teaches you all of the soft skills in life. It's incredible for that. And so that's one of the things I would highlight from it. And I guess my parting words would be, I hope to see you all at World Model UN Day 2023. And with any luck, it'll be with the UN and with all of these amazing organizations and with, just as Kevin said, as many people as humanly possible to come. And so look forward to seeing you there. That's all. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Sharon isn't here with us. I'm going to go to Shuye.
Okay, so thank you. Oh, as we know, so Model UN has more than 70 years old, yeah. And I think Model UN is a kind of tool to connect the different generations, just like us and Eric and Bill, yeah. So I think it's a kind of tool just to connect different generations between young and olders. And today we may talk to youth, maybe 5 or 10 years later, maybe we will talk to younger youth. Yeah, so maybe that is a tool for Model UN for us. Yeah, so just to make friends and explore the world. Yeah.
Awesome, Shuye. Eric, your time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Shuye, I think I just want to add on because for me, I think what's the difference between an MUN conference and a debate club? And because you could just go to a debate club and debate and learn how to debate. But I think what MUN can offer is to become more global, more international, and open up the way you see things. And I think that's one of the strengths in MUN is that it gives you an opportunity to open up and get an understanding of others, other countries, others' thinking, and that's the way to end up finding solutions for the future of our planet to make it a big thing.
Thank you, Eric. And lastly, but by no means least, Leah.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess just to tie all these amazing thoughts into a neat little package and put a bow on it. As someone who works in international affairs, I think sometimes it's easy to get cynical or tired with international processes, the bureaucracy, the minutia, and then I come to a Model UN space and I see the energy there, the creativity, that students are genuinely excited to be finding solutions for problems, and that's incredibly powerful. So to all the students listening, I would say your voice has value. You deserve a seat at the table, and you should take advantage of that through this incredible forum. And thank you to my fellow panelists for your excellent thoughts. I cannot agree with them more.
Absolutely. So in closing, David was reminding us to pay it forward. We see Finn telling us to spread the word about MUNs, MUN impact. Matthew O sharing with us that youth should step up today because they're an integral part of our tomorrow. Kevin sharing with us that the Model UN community has great potential and persons should invest in it. We have Philippe sharing with us that he hopes to see us at World MUN Day, a day that will help to recognize and to commemorate and to celebrate all the contributions that MUNs across the world rather have contributed to our global development. Shuye sharing with us that MUNs are an instrument of friendship and world exploration that helps us to see further than we will see in our national locales. We have Eric sharing with us that it's not always about the debate, but about the dialogue that MUN helps us to stimulate and to have those important conversations. And Leah closing us with that the youth voice is so valuable and important, and that it has a space at those decision-making tables. I believe that's all the time we have to spend today, ladies and gentlemen, but I believe my panelists and organizations are very easy to find. So a simple Google search will show you them, and I'm certain they won't mind if you personally reach out to them with your questions, and they'll get back to you at their earliest convenience. So we have come to the end of our event. In closing, I want to express gratitude to my ambassador, His Excellency Mr. Brian Wallace, from the Permanent Representative of Jamaica to the UN, for his leadership in planning this side event. I'd also like to thank my esteemed panel for taking the time out of their schedules to canvass this important topic, namely Leah from National Model UN, Eric from THIMUN, Shuye from WELAND, Sharon from the International Global Network and National Model UN Africa, Philippe from MUNers Across Borders, Kevin from Best Delegate, Matthew and Shennon from MUN Impact, Finn from WFUNA International Model UN, Bill, I have to stop and say, Bill, thank you very much. You were integral to the success that today was. Thank you so much. Who also works at WFUNA, Jonas from MyMUN, and lastly, but by no means least, David Miles from WiseMe. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories with young people across the globe today. And finally, to you, my beloved participants, our sincere gratitude for choosing to spend your time with us today. And if you're already a member of MUN, I hope that you will continue to serve in MUNs and to encourage others to join an MUN. And if you're not in a member of the MUN community just yet, I hope that you now recognize the usefulness of Model UNs and you will join one to help to create the future we want to see. This was a 2022 ECOSOC Youth Forum side event on Model UN contributions to building a more sustainable future, co-organized by the Permanent Mission of Jamaica to the United Nations and a coalition of MUN organizations. My name is Nahjae Nunes, and it was my pleasure to moderate the proceedings. Everyone, do have a wonderful rest of day.
Thank you very much for excellent moderation as well. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you.